We're at Fan Expo 2011, and I'm sitting here with Michael Biehn and Jennifer Blanc. That stars with a new movie coming out that is called
Grindhouse?
The Victim and The Divide.
First off, I just want to say thank you very much for being here. I personally am kind of a big fan, so if I get all blubbery and stupid and stuff, that's kind of why, so I apologize. But we're really excited to have you here, and I do want to talk about The Victim especially. You guys have been calling this a labor of love to, everywhere I've read about it. And it's the first movie you've produced together, but you guys do kind of have a lengthy history, right? Like back in 1997, you started a couple of movies together, and you've got the James Cameron sort of connection there as well.
Yeah.
So, has producing and directing your own movie been something you've always wanted to do, like independently before you met, or is it something you ever talked about before you actually got together?
I've always been bugging him to direct because I've always felt he's a really, really, really terrific person to work with for actors. And so it's something I've always bugged him about. And as far as, I think Jim Cameron's always told him to direct. I mean, a lot of people have.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of directors who said that they thought that I would make a good director, and Jim was one of them. And then I went to work with Robert Rodriguez on Grindhouse, and Jim said to me once about Robert that one of the brilliant things about him is that he just doesn't understand that he can't do something, so he just does it, He's just like one of these guys who just says, go do it. So I was working on Xavier Gen's movie, The Divide, last spring, and I saw a kid in a coffee shop on a day off, and he was reading Rebel Without a Crew. And I kind of thought back to Robert, and I said to myself, you know what, maybe I'll just go out and make a little Grindhouse movie. I talked to Jennifer, and she had brought me a script 8 months earlier to a year earlier, and asked me if I'd be interested in rewriting it and directing it and so on and so forth, and it just looked like too much work at the time, and the money fell through on that, and but that was always kind of in the back of my mind.
Like a novella type story.
Then I ran into a young man who wanted to make a movie about Burt Lancaster, but he didn't have enough money to make a movie about Burt Lancaster, and I told him that. And when I got back into Los Angeles, I thought, well, maybe I could marry the two together. So I talked to the money people, and I said, listen, I'm going to make this movie on a really, really low budget. So if I make this movie, I get to make all the decisions, all the creative decisions, all the production decisions, and who we sell it to and when we sell it. I mean, I'm like the last word on everything, because we're making it so cheaply, I didn't want to look foolish, So they agreed to that, so...
We didn't even know if we were going to put blanc-biehn Productions on the movie while making it, even though it was a labor of love and we all trusted Michael. But after the fact, I mean, he did such a brilliant job with this exploitation movie that we were like, yeah, we want our company on this, and it's formed. I mean, that was kind of how the company got formed, was we love the movie, we're proud of it, let's stamp it with our company. Right?
Yeah. Basically, I realized that this guy did have money, and I said, well, I wanted to make sure that he did, and I said, well, okay, well, let's see you start spending some of it, because you never know, like, you get a lot of people who say they have money who really don't have money. He started spending money on my salary and some of the different departments, and I realized at that point that I had a movie and I really needed to make the movie, and I didn't have a script, though, so I had to rewrite a script that was kind of like a novella, that was more like a Saw type of movie, but I was really kind of a page one rewrite. So I rewrote the script during a 3-week period of time, and we went into pre-production, and while I was writing the script, she was crewing up, and she was dealing with the Screen Actors Guild, and she was location scouting and doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and I was writing the script and casting and so on and so forth. So we basically had a 3-week pre-production without a script, which is pretty, kind of hard to do. Usually you want a script when you go into pre-production. Usually you want more than 3 weeks, And then we rolled straight from that into a 12-day shooting schedule, and we got it done in 12 days. And it's a little kind of a grindhouse movie. I basically said, if I'm going to make a movie like this, what can I afford? And I didn't really have any money, so I looked at her and I thought, well, would you be willing to get naked and do?
Right.
It wasn't the money.
I got some boobies.
Yeah. Would you be willing to get naked and do dirty things on film for me? And she said yes. And then I asked her about her friend Danielle Harris, who's kind of got a genre following, and Danielle said she'd get naked for me, and I thought, okay, well, I got that covered, so I got that, and I thought, I always thought like Dirty Cops is good, and drugs, and I had enough money to do a little bit of action, a little bit of torture, and then I thought, fuck it, I'll just throw in a serial killer. So I just took all those elements and I wrote the script, and voila, we have The Victim, and it's turned out really well for us, and we're screening it here this afternoon.
Yeah, take a look at this.
Rick Lynch at BLT designed, and they did No Country for Old Men and Avatar, and I mean everything.
All of Cameron's stuff.
All of Harry Potter, all of Cameron. I mean, they're ridiculous.
Rick
We're very
happens
lucky
to be a friend of mine.
them.
Rick is the guy who created the logo of the little kid sitting on DreamWorks logo.
Oh,
the
sure.
kid with the
the kid fishing off the
pole.
moon.
Yeah.
And that's
He's
The
guy who did
Divide
poster.
up there. Xavier Gen's The Divide, which
that's
comes
a
out
movie
in
that I'm
theaters
coming
in
out
November,
in
and it's playing at
November.
Toronto After Dark.
Is that tonight?
No, Toronto After Dark is going to be after this festival's finished.
Okay,
so The
right.
Victim is today at 1 o'clock here, and then Divide is at Toronto After Dark. And if you want to go see The Victim, like really what you got to look at, like reviews of Michael's directing, all kinds of press, all kinds of video interviews, our Houston screening, which was a lot of fun. You can go to www.grindhousethevictim.com. And we have The Victim Movie Facebook page. If you go to Jennifer Blanc-Biehn on Facebook, you can communicate with me and look at all the links that I put up about The Victim. There's like all kinds of social media ways. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube on the movie if you put in Michael Biehn and The Victim. So.
Well, that's great. So yeah, there's lots of information to be found online about it.
Oh yeah.
Just because this is a Grindhouse movie, is Grindhouse, the Robert Rodriguez connection is obvious, but is Grindhouse a genre that you've always wanted to work in, or is this something that just, you told the story about how you came to do it, but is it something that's been in the back of your head for a long time?
I said the only reason it's really a Grindhouse movie is that it's cheap and it is exploitation.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's basically just a little thriller. I saw Hobo with a Shotgun the other day, and I mean that really has a Grindhouse feel to it, and our movie's not like that. Our movie is more, just kind of your basic. It's shot like a regular movie, and the music and so on and so forth. So it's not really a Grindhouse movie in the feeling of an old-fashioned movie. It just was shot on a very, very low budget, and it was shot, just with a like a low budget and with very exploitable sort of people and sex and drugs and betrayal and serial killer and that type of thing. It has those elements, but basically I call it a Grindhouse movie. It's kind of a 2011 version of a Grindhouse movie.
Your website, blanc-biehn-productions.com, which, by the way, the tagline for is "Rebel with a Crew." I think that's awesome. That's fantastic.
A friend of ours came up with that, and I was pretty impressed.
Well, it's just
with
such
that.
a great
That
nod to
was
where
Travis.
it all comes from, right? So that's really smart. I think that's great. You've got a great making of piece that showcases your reputation for being kind of intense. And I'm not going to say where the piece is, because if you go to the site, it's kind of an Easter egg. It's sort of hidden away right down to the bottom, right?
Yeah, if they
Don't say no. Yeah, they'll find it.
All right. Go look for it.
But go look for it. It's awesome. It's totally worth it. It's so rad. But you find a ton of behind the scenes reports of how you get the most out of your actors and how you get the most out of a performance, and sort of your commitment to realism and like the gritty realism of getting this kind of thing on film. And the one thing that really stood out for me is the whole story about the LAPD chokehold.
Yeah.
Can you go into that just a little bit, because it's pretty nuts?
Well, I basically there's a scene in the movie where a cop chokes me out, and I figured if he was a cop, he would know the LAPD chokehold, which is basically something that subdues something very quickly. It was used under Daryl Gates during his tenure as the captain of the police department in Los Angeles, and they used it for about 3 or 4 or 5 years to subdue victims. They didn't have stun guns and so on and so forth, but it ended up killing people, so they ended up kind of having to drop it. But I figured that this guy in this movie was a cop, he'd know it, and if he had a chance to get behind me and put a chokehold on me, he'd put on the LAPD chokehold. So I told the actor to put it on. And I was just...
Actor's name is Ryan Honey, correct?
Ryan Honey, yeah. And I just told him, and I said, just put it on. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, if I get into trouble, I'll just tap out, So I don't know what I was thinking. I was just moving so fast and just trying to get the day done. And and like just thinking, well, nobody can choke me out. I'm Michael Biehn or whatever, you know, and like, so anyway, he throws the choke. We roll camera, puts the chokehold on me, and you know, within about 12, 13, 14 seconds, you know, I started fading, and I knew I was fading, so I tapped out, but I did it a little bit late, so I'm just kind of like in La La Land there. And if you go to the, you see it on, we have it, it's on YouTube, and you can see it on our site, our website or whatever. But after we did it, and the next day, the following day, we said to ourselves, hey, that might be kind of a fun way to, you know, like get some information out to the public that we're making a movie. So that was the first piece of press we put out there, was me being choked out, you know.
Michael Biehn almost directs himself to death.
That's
See it
right.
here.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
That was a scary day.
It was well, for you, right? Especially.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very brief moment in the day, but yeah, every time I can't watch it. He likes to watch it. He likes to watch it and laugh.
That's pretty badass. You have to give it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure. So you're pretty blunt about what kind of movie this is, right? It's like I read somewhere that you told a panel that if you don't like fucking and fighting, you're not going to like this movie, right?
Yeah.
Pretty transparent what kind of movie you're.
Yeah,
It's
you know,
on the panel
basically
that
it's basically a movie that, I don't really expect anybody, I don't want anybody to take it seriously.
Sure.
You know, I want them to have a good time, laugh. You know, don't feel free to laugh at like inopportune times, you know, because it is like what I consider like a big bowl of ice cream that you get to and you eat, and you know, it's really good while you're eating it and really fun, and then afterwards you kind of feel a little sick for enjoying yourself so much, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's a guilty pleasure, I would call it.
But it was so worth it.
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure for sure, but it's fun, you know, and I want people to have fun and not like take, you know, everything in life is so serious, and filmmakers take themselves so seriously, and I'm like, look at, man, we just fucking threw this together in like 12 days, and it's a fun story, and you know, enjoy it with us, you know, and don't, you know, like scrutinize it to think like, wow, what am I going to get out of this? And it's just yeah.
So it sounds like you made it as much for guys like me as you did for yourself, right? It's like when it comes to fucking and fighting, yeah, I'll see that movie,
Right.
for sure.
Well, every time I've announced that to the audience, I said, if you don't like fucking and fighting, you want to get up and leave right now.
Nobody gets up and leaves.
Nobody gets up and leaves.
No.
I know I wouldn't, that's for sure. So it is pretty raunchy. I'm gonna say that for sure. It's like I haven't seen it yet. I've seen a lot of the trailers and whatever's available, but it does get pretty raunchy. And I do want to talk about one little fact that in the movie you guys get pretty close, and I imagine directing a love scene really close. I imagine directing a love scene takes like sort of a light touch, no matter if it's a grindhouse movie or anything else, right? No matter who it is. But when the person you're directing is your wife and the other person you're directing is yourself, does that make it any easier or harder to get through a scene like that?
You know, I just felt we basically just were, you know, it's just work. You know, it really is
also,
just.
you know, he was so aware of my wanting to look a certain way in the scene more than it being. It does come across very passionate and beautiful on screen. I mean, it's one interviewer likened it to his scene with Linda in the Terminator, which we were like. One of the reviewers did that. I think it was National Lampoon. I don't know, but
It was Mona Lee.
it was Mona Lee
Yeah.
of Huffington Post,
Exactly.
and she. It was Mona. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, that's
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
But you know, she kind of hit it. You know, it looks really sexual, and really beautiful, and that's probably what we're like privately. But in the middle of the scene, I was more concerned about, guys, what does this look like from this angle? And he was more concerned
And
with,
you
like,
gotta remember,
you know,
too,
let me
that
move your hair
we-
for you, and
we
you know, let me
had,
hold you this way.
You know, probably 10 minutes of footage, you know, so I'm in the cutting room, and and I cut it down to 30 seconds or 45, whatever it is. You know, it's a situation where it's really kind of a cutting room situation.
It's
where
intense,
we
though.
just kind of went for it, you know, and acted like we were having sex. And I said, just film us in all different. And we set up the camera in different positions or whatever. But it's more of an editing feat than it is a, like, okay, well, I'm directing this in the moment. I mean, we were just making love without really making love, and I had them film it, you know, and I would say, put the camera over here, put the camera there, make sure you get this.
But his
trying to keep
niece
the
was
hair.
working on the set, and he showed up in a robe, and she was doing wardrobe, and she was behind the monitor, and then he disrobed, and the camera was right there. And she flew back about 30 feet, and we didn't see her for a couple hours. So that was the start of that scene.
That's awkward.
She won't discuss it to this day.
You play a lot of military types, like cops and law officials and stuff like that. This is a big departure for that, right? Basically, this time sort of a badass who's caught in the middle, right?
Yes.
Is that intentional? Is that something you wrote just to sort of do something a little bit different? Or is it just
No, it wasn't intentional. It was basically, like I said, there was a guy named Reed Lackey who wrote a story, and he created those characters, and that character was kind of a loner who lived up in the woods. But it wasn't really a screenplay per se. It was more like a novella, sort of. And so, you know, he created the character. So I just basically, you know, followed up on it. So you know, I'm glad that I'm not playing a cop or a DA or an Army guy in it, you know.
Or a Navy SEAL.
Or a Navy SEAL, you know. It's nice to do something other than that, and it's nice to play somebody who's kind of caught in the middle and isn't a hero and isn't a bad guy, somebody who's kind of indecisive, and it kind of gave me a lot to play as an actor, so.
That's cool, that's great. Just want to go back a little bit, and this is the last thing I'm going to ask. I wanted to talk a little bit about Aliens, Terminator, things like that. I watched some documentary Q&A a while ago with Sigourney Weaver, and it was before Alien vs. Predator came out. And she described it as the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. And now I'm hearing that there's rumors that the new Terminator movie is going to be a reboot. And that Arnie's, you know, Schwarzenegger's back and all that, and yay. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this whole idea of like taking, in most cases, perfectly good movies, in some cases brilliant movies, and having somebody come along and go, hey, I think I can do that better. And if that were to happen to anything that you've been in, and they approached you about it, is that something you'd be interested in being involved in?
Well, what happens really is if you look at Aliens, the first two are Jim Cameron. I mean, the first one was Ridley Scott, then you have Jim Cameron doing 2 and 3. And those, you know, those are all great movies. They're great filmmakers, you know. After that, you know, they went down the toilet. As far as I'm concerned, you know, David Fincher's Aliens was just terrible. And, you know, and the Terminator movies, filmmaker like Cameron doing the first one and the second one, and then, you know, whoever did 3 and 4, Josh Mostel, I think his name. He's a good filmmaker. He's made some good movies, but you just can't follow Cameron, you know. And so, you know, if I was going to do like a sequel to this, which I probably will, I'll probably do it myself because like I have total control. You have to realize that, you know, like Jim doesn't have any control of what happens in Terminator 3 or Terminator 4. Ridley Scott's got no control over any of that, you know. And so, you know, then you just throw in any director like McG or something like that. And, you know, I tried to watch Terminator 4. And, I mean, I knew what basically the whole Terminator franchise was about and everything. And I watched about 30 minutes. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Things blowing up all over the place, CGI bombs, and you know, and I just thought like, well, you know, it was much better when it was simpler, a simple story, you know.
A little less
why we went back to this, you know, and doing something like that.
Okay,
all right, man.
That's amazing.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you very, very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that we started getting
no, that's
distracted.
totally cool.